laptop's muted.
Darren Godfrey, Hub International.
Mike Godfrey, also Hub International.
All right, I think that's everyone. We can move along. Are there any announcements?
I would like to briefly acknowledge that we had a great Juneteenth celebration out at Lynn Benton Community College that we helped to support this year. And good showing by Benton County staff, and would like to thank the staff that were out there for that day, supporting our couple of booths at the Juneteenth celebration. I'd also like to acknowledge that it's
Hearing and seeing none. Is there anyone on the computer that would like to testify? Hearing and
the week of the 12th of June. That huge surge in cases. We estimated that for every reported case, there were about 14 unreported. And now it's estimated that there are anywhere from 20 to 30 times more infections than are what reported. So overall, we remain in a plateau of high cases and high transmission. We do hope to see reported cases come down soon, as we've seen in some other areas. Wastewater surveillance, even though it's a bit lagged, continues to reflect that the viral signals remain high in our area. So we'll continue to monitor reported cases, wastewater surveillance, and other sources for signs that this waste will be past us at some point soon. We're also hearing that there are increases in some of the newer sub-variants of Omicron BA4 and 5. Proportions of those are increased nationally. And it's yet to be seen if we're going to see the impact of that, as we have plenty of the other variants circulating right now. So for the CDC community levels, if you remember, the green, yellow, and red, the metrics are formed on not only reported cases, but also hospitalization data. Oregon had 3 counties a few weeks ago moved into the red category. And then the week right after that, those moved back up to the yellow category, and then 3 other counties moved to red. These are all, were all predicated on the amount of COVID-19 hospitalizations occurring. And all those counties are counties south of Benton County. For us here in Benton County, one of the following two would need to be met to put us into the high-risk category. So the new COVID-19 admissions per 100,000 would need to be at 10 per 100,000. Currently, we are at 5.8, and that's up from 4. And the other metric that could move Benton County into the high community level category is the percentage of staff beds in new sites with 19 patients.
And again, that would be at 10% would put us at high, the high category. We're currently at 4.9%, and that's up from 3.6%. So we're closely monitoring hospital admissions as well as the staffed bed percentages. So, our hospitalizations have really leveled out at a higher plateau, not as high as we saw in Omicron, but in the past 2 weeks, statewide hospitalizations have ranged only from between about 309 to 327. In Region 2, which is Benton, Lynn, Lincoln, Polk, Marion, and Yamhill counties, hospitalizations are more variable, but decreased from 54 to 41 individuals hospitalized. So the messaging really doesn't change much. We need to understand that the variants now circulating are much more transmissible than the ones that preceded it. We know that it's likely that everyone will be exposed to the virus at some point, but not all of them need to result in infection or transmission. And as I've said before, persons who wish to avoid infection can consider wearing an N95 or a KN95 in indoor public spaces at this time. And to reduce the risk of infection and onward transmission to others, please, the most important thing you can do is to stay up to date with vaccinations. We know now that 3 doses are key for most, and get a 4th if you qualify. And let's welcome in this summer weather that we're getting this week. Choose outdoor activities where you can in well-ventilated spaces. We have a lot of rapid antigen capability in stock right now. And so use those rapid antigen tests before gatherings, when traveling, when feeling unwell, even before meetings if you can, if you're having a large get-together. And then, reduction in risk isn't all or nothing. You can reduce your risk when you feel that it's higher. Deciding to wear a mask when your risk is greater is a great idea, even if you don't choose to apply it universally. I'm going to move on to vaccine news because it's been a really exciting last several days. The moment that so many families have been waiting for has arrived. On Saturday, the CDC recommended 2 vaccines for young children. And the Western States Scientific Review Board and then OHA authorized the administration locally. The new pediatric vaccines for children under 5 for Pfizer and under 6 for Moderna are different doses of different formulations of earlier COVID-19 vaccines, and separate supplies must be ordered and delivered. We're really excited to have these here and administered. Benton County Health Department and most of the local pediatric offices have already placed initial orders for the vaccine, which will begin arriving starting this week. Additional deliveries will be arriving through next week and into early July. And we'll continue to work with providers across the county to build a strong vaccination infrastructure in the places where vaccines are normally sought. And though we're working really hard to have the new pediatric vaccines available at our vaccine events, we unfortunately will not have all the required pieces in place ready for our next events, which are this week, June 24th to 26th. We just won't have the vaccines in hand until maybe the day of, and if that changes, we will put some messaging out into the community. We are planning to have the young peds vaccine for younger children available soon after this next week and at our next vaccination events in July. And we're going to announce those dates next week. We ask everyone to be patient and to work with their pediatrician and care providers' offices to have their children vaccinated. Some retail pharmacies will also carry pediatric vaccines and will offer vaccines to children 3 and older. Participating pharmacies should open appointments soon, as supplies are expected to arrive again next week. I do know that Walgreens locations are currently allowing online appointments, and I believe that CVS will do so soon. And we will learn of many, many more in the coming days. And as vaccines are newly approved, as we've seen before, low supply and high demand will likely make finding an appointment challenging, similar to when the adult and pediatric vaccines for older children were first made available. And as was previously the case, the supply of the new vaccines will stabilize and appointments will soon become much, much easier to make. There are a couple of differences in the two vaccines that were approved this weekend that I'll just really briefly discuss. The Pfizer young pediatric vaccine is available for kids 6 months to 4 years old, and it's a 3-dose series. The second dose is administered 21 days after the first dose, and there's a third dose 2 months after the second dose. And it's really important that all 3 doses be administered in order for the vaccine to be effective. And each of those doses is just 3 micrograms, or 1/10 of the adult dosage. The Moderna vaccine for young kids is available for children 6 months through 5 years old. And this is a 2-dose series. The second dose is administered 28 days after the first dose. And each of these doses is 25 micrograms, or a quarter of the adult dosage. There is also something in the works to authorize a Moderna COVID-19 vaccine for children 6 through 17 years old. This has not been finalized yet, and this will be a separate vaccine for the ones for children 5 and under. The safety profile is very good for both of the vaccines that were authorized over the weekend. Side effects are typically mild and go away in 1 or 2 days. They include soreness at the injection site, fatigue, headaches, or fever. And we ask that if people have questions about how to protect their children from COVID-19, about the vaccines, or side effects, to speak with their healthcare provider or pediatrician. And I think that's all I have for you today. I could go on and on about my excitement and about the new approvals, but I'll leave it there and see if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, April. Any comments or questions for April?
Yeah, I've got one, April. So once the pediatric vaccine is available, am I correct that at our clinics we will have the adult doses, Pfizer and Moderna, boosters, and pediatric, kind of one-stop shopping? Is that our goal?
Thanks, Commissioner Malone. That's a great question. And, you know, when we first had authorization of the 5 to 11-year-old COVID-19 vaccines, we did have a few series of clinics when we limited to that age group so that we could get more children through. We may do the same and have a few specific young children vaccine clinics until we go back to the one-stop shop method of providing vaccines. But I do see that that will be a short-term change, and we do have many providers out in the community who can get boosters and other doses to other age groups.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming today and sharing all that information with us. Next up on the agenda, we have discussion and decision to renew the 2022 through 23 property liability and workers' compensation insurance policies with Rick Krager. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good to see you all. Can you hear me okay? Thought I'd just better check in case with all the technical challenges this morning. I thought I would run check. So again, thank you for having us here today. I have two guests here with me, Darren Godfrey and Mike Godfrey, both from Hub International, and they will be joining us. This is a annual process. This is my first time, as well as Darren and Mike's first time in front of you as it relates to renewing our insurances for the upcoming fiscal year. I believe traditionally we come in front of you in June, provide you a quick overview of the changes that have occurred, and both Mike and Darren will provide a little bit more insight to that and review and ultimate approval. So with that, I know within your packet, we've been provided you information, and if I can get to control the screen, I'm happy to pull that up if that's helpful. Don't know if Mark can give me a quick.
Sure, just one moment.
Excellent. Okay, everybody see that okay? Okay, with that, I will invite Darren to come, and I'll just take this to the summary page, which illustrates the changes that have been made between last fiscal year and this. So I don't know if Mike or Darren want to take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Hey, thanks for having me, everyone. It's my first time in this meeting, and I appreciate your time. I'll just go through like a 30,000-foot overview of where we're at for 2022-2023 policy term. And let's see here. I see Rick is on that page. Rick, can you go to page 1? I know it's a little tough to see. This year, for the 2022 policy term, 2022-2023, property limits have increased about 9.76% on the actual structures itself, and about 10% on the contents and the property in open. That's what CIS trends for inflation-related purposes and what's called inflation guard, what they call the trending model. Their overall rate increase is about 5.23%. And so overall, we have about a 15.27% change in premium due to property value increases with about 5.23% rate increase. The coverages have remained the same on the quake and the flood and the excess quake and flood. That still provides $10 million of primary coverage with $10 million of excess. And Rick and I have been in discussion about that excess related limits in the last couple of weeks with the future projects coming up. Equipment breakdown remains unchanged per the statement of values. So overall, property is up, like I say, 15.27% due to trending rate increases and due to a little bit of rate increase. Went from about a 17-cent rate per 100 to about an 18-cent rate per 100. Next slide, Rick. For the tort liability, general liability section, premiums have changed about 26.63%, or rough. Well, let me see here, about 26%, 25.71%. So the reasons for the increase above what CIS projected in their budget conference, they budgeted about 15%, or asked their members to budget about 15% for increases. But because we've had an increase of 19% in personal services, a 26% increase in material and services, 10 more jail beds reported and 1 more officer reported, that is the additional increase in premium above what CIS asked us to budget, or its members to budget. So overall, we have about, like I say, 25.71% increase, partly from CIS rate increase and as well increase in exposure on the county. Our crime coverage hasn't changed any. Limits are about the same, increase in premium of about 1.23%. And our auto liability and auto physical damage portion of that is up about 13%. And that's all due to rate, not so much exposure to additional autos or the deletion of autos or addition of autos. So overall, about 13%, about 13% on the auto physical damage, auto liability. Cyber is a issue right now within the entire exposure across the U.S. Cyber losses have been off the charts from carriers or for carriers, and it's been a very contentious line of business for most carriers. Most carriers are losing money on the cyber. Last year, CIS did not charge you guys, charge the county or its members for the first $50,000 worth of coverage. This year, they want to charge $7,500 for the first $50,000 of coverage. I need to recommend and would recommend that we do not purchase the first $50,000 of cyber from CIS, because we have a monoline or a separate cyber liability policy in place with $3 million worth of coverage. And that premium is about the same as what you spent last year. Actually, it's about $13 more than what you budgeted last year. The small, which not really a small issue, is the limits that are being provided for this policy term are going down from $5 million down to $3 million. Carriers are just not offering limits typically in excess of $1 million. And to get $3 million worth of coverage is unusual. But we are going from a $5 million limit down to a $3 million limit. And the premium is about, again, $13 more than what we spent last year. This is mostly, I'll do the multi-factor authentication requirements from CIS. Not many members are purchasing cyber in excess of 50,000 because they don't qualify, because they don't have MFA in place. It's just been a real issue with cyber losses. So in summary, the premium has increased about 20.6%. That number right there is a little bit off that you see on your screen of 21.52 with an increase of 170. That is including if we do purchase the cyber liability, the $50,000 of cyber coverage from CIS. So if we deduct that $6,750 charge, we're down to about 20.6% and a premium increase of about $163,843. So we do have the option of purchasing that for $50,000 from CIS, but I think because we have the $3 million in place through a separate policy, that we should waive that cyber coverage offered by CIS. Last year they didn't offer, or they offered it at no charge. This year they're charging each member for that. So in summary, that is the property and casualty and cyber and crime line of business. But we also have the workers' compensation side of the business, and Mike can take over on that line.
And before Mike jumps in, as Darren indicated, obviously there will be an adjustment in relation to this. There will be a smaller amount due to the not taking or recommending not taking the $7,500 minimum. The one thing he touched on, though, as it relates to MFA, I think that is a discussion. I'm pausing. Is there a technical issue?
Rick, I think everybody else has to mute their mic except you if you're talking.
Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. I thought I'd give it a pause there. So again, just wanted to quickly say that this, as Darren alluded to, this will be a small adjustment down to about $163,000 increase, which I think he said is just slightly above 20.5% increase. The other thing, though, he touched on was the MFA. And while you saw that obviously our limits are less than what we have traditionally seen, I think that's something from my standpoint. I know I've talked to Adam a little bit about this. We probably want to look at that. If we are able to implement MFA, that will give us opportunities for increase as it relates to our and mitigating our exposure. I do think that is something that we want to talk about. Obviously, there will be a cost related to MFA and implementing that. But Darren has assured me that if that is something the county takes on, it would probably put us in a better position as it relates to maybe perhaps getting back to the levels of insurances that we had. And Darren, I don't know if you want to add anything more on that.
Well, I will say that in addition to, just the overall protection for the county, the premiums would be adjusted as well if you did invest in in the MFA as it pertains to remote and VPN access and iPhones and laptops, that type of thing. If people are using those outside the network, it will also, we can rerun a cyber score, if you will, and they will readjust the premium and be a little bit more aggressive if we know the protection that's in place is there. And so they will get more aggressive on the rating of the account.
So again, I just wanted to put that in front of the board. That's something we can bring back and have further discussion as it relates to what it will take in terms of that implementation. So with that, I've pulled up the SAFE overview that Mike had provided. So we'll turn it to you, Mike.
Thank you, Rick. So I'll handle the workers' compensation, which is much easier than the other stuff that Darren reviewed. First of all, I'll say for Benton County, from an overall workers' compensation point of view, the performance has been quite strong. It's been a pleasure to work with the safety group. And over the course of the last 5 years, there's been 1 year that the loss ratio has blown up on us. So performance has been very good. Now, last year at July 1st, we switched to Save Corporation. Previous years had been with CIS. And Safe's policy holders for the last 20 years have benefited from reduced premiums each year, and this year is continuing. When you take a look at the side-by-side, what we try and do for you is give you a true apples-to-apples comparison of your cost with using the projected payrolls for this upcoming year, so that we're giving you a real true value of where the costs are. So the short story on the renewal is, first of all, that the rates for each of the class codes are down, with the exception of 9015, which I believe is firefighters. 9015 is, and no, actually it's building operations. So not a big code, but all the other codes are down. Your experience mod, which is how you are judged in terms of your success or failures from a claims standpoint, and you've always been very strong. Last year you were 0.84, which means you're receiving a 16% credit. And this year you're going to be, thank you, Rick, you're going to be a 0.82, which is obviously an additional two points of credit, or 18% credit. So when you look at that versus a 1.0, which is par for your peer groups, you're performing quite well. And I think all the time and effort placed on safety, return to work programs, monitoring and managing the claims, it's all very, very important. And you can't sit on your laurels here, but bottom line is it's been very successful. So the rates are down, your experience mod's down. The DCBS premium assessment, which is basically the tax that runs the insurance department, has moved from 9% to 9.8%. And at the end of the day, what happens, we've got a total premium of approximately 12% savings, which includes 7% increase in payroll from our estimate last year. So really, from a work comp standpoint, very strong renewal, all good news. You have not yet enjoyed a dividend from Safe Corporation, but once you're a policyholder for 2 years, you'll be eligible to participate in that, and that can offset the cost even more. At some point in time, I've been saying it for 5 years, that work comp rates are going to start going up, but I've been wrong for 5 years in a row. So we'll just knock on wood that I continue to be wrong. But as we know, medical costs continue to rise. So there's going to be a point where the workers' comp is going to catch up to it. So far, employers have beaten the curve by keeping their employees safe and spending time and resources in making sure that they do so. So that's the overview on the workers' comp side. It's all good news, like I said. Any questions?
There was a discussion recently about staff vacancies, and traditionally, I think we have about 600 staff, and traditionally 40 or 50.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing anything.
No sound.
No sound.
So if you unmute there, it's gonna do.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me speaking right now? No?
Wow, what happened?
Can anybody on the computer hear us?
I can hang up and dial back in.
So, still no change? No.
Okay, so should we take a break?
Mike, can you hear me okay? Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
We are
They feel like
going,
they can hear us, but we just can't. Feel like they can hear us, but we just can't hear them.
we're gonna take a break. We're on break. No, nobody can hear us? All right, back to the drawing board.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I just can't hear you.
And we just tested it.
I feel like this is-
I'm just going to leave this on.
Okay,
That might help.
okay. So just to verify, Rick, you can hear us? Can you unmute and see if we can hear you?
Yes, Commissioner, I can hear you.
Wonderful, perfect. Commissioner Ojero, did you figure out, is your thing working again?
I'm back online.
All right, we're getting there. We really appreciate everyone's patience.
Conference will now be recorded.
I think that was mine. I can tell you that I can't turn my camera on any longer.
Okay. So we will, should we, okay, we will just press on. So we are back from our break. I believe we have sound both ways. Rick, were you shaking your head? Can you hear us? You can't hear us? Son of a biscuit.
Okay.
And nobody heard that.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Can you hear us now? Is it that we're recording that? Yeah.
Maybe we just
And
need to go to
Zan's
our
camera's
individual
working?
offices and dial in. It's just not working.
Yeah.
That might be the best bet.
Okay. Sure. Erica, could you put a thing in the chat that we are going to? Okay. Well, what about this? We have this computer here. Could they use this one?
John, what we're thinking about doing is moving to our own individual offices. How does that impact you?
Just putting the GoToMeeting out online? Yeah, I can do that. And yes, anybody in the room here should be able to just use the computer.
We don't need our mics then? Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it looks like we are all back here. And Rick, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So we left off at the point, where did we leave off? You had said something, Pat asked a question.
Yeah, what happened was Mike had just finished up on the workers' comp, and I believe Commissioner Malone was asking a question and we couldn't hear him.
Okay, can you hear me now? Good thing I have a good memory of my question. On the workers' comp, so I think that's Mike. Ben County has approximately 600 full-time employees. Traditionally, we have 40 or 50 vacancies. We are currently over 100 vacant positions. Does that impact workers' comp rates, or does that increase vacancy do anything to the workers' comp?
No, workers' compensation is 100% based on actual payroll. So having void locations or jobs that are yet to be filled would not affect anything. And you would not pay based on, this is simply an estimate. You actually pay based on what payroll you report on a monthly basis.
Okay. And assuming we add that, then workers' comp picks that up as we go along.
I'm sorry, that came through jarbled to me.
You have to mute when he's not speaking.
Okay, so I assume that SAFE picks up employees as we hopefully add to staff, that it's a dynamic process. Okay, that's what I had. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was a nod. I think I saw Mike nodding yes to Commissioner Malone's question. I have a question on the document. I believe it's page 5 of the document that you were initially screen sharing, Rick. There were 2 columns that both say 2021 to 2022 CIS $10,000 per claim dead, DED. I'm just curious what the difference between those 2 columns are. It was unclear to me.
Well, I think Deidre made it error. That should be 2021, 2022 for the first column. 2020. That should be 2020 to 2021. Actually, no, that is great. 2021, 2022, and the 2022 to 2023 should be the second column. I think that is in typo error. That is the policy term. The second column is the policy term. The other error that I do see, it should have been a little bit more descriptive when she created this document, is the current cyber limits in place today prior to 7/1 are at 5 million. And at renewal for 2022 to the 2023 policy period, they're going down to 3 million.
Okay, so the bottom line where it says total annual premiums, $963,133, is that the total cost to the county?
It will be minus if the county decides to non-renew the cyber coverage provided by CIS, you can deduct the $6,750 from that number. bringing the total down to about 163,843. If not, and you want the coverage from CIS, the $50,000 worth of cyber coverage from them, then you can keep it included in the total premium. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yes. So last year's it cost us 792,000. This year it's up to 963,000, et cetera. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah. I apologize.
And then for the agent of record, who exactly is our agent of record?
Hub International is your agent of record. And that fee is for our services is $21,000 invoiced to the county. But you are also, keep in mind, receiving a 10% risk management credit of approximately about $106,000. And if we weren't the agent of record, that discount to the county would not apply.
Okay, thank you. Other comments and questions? Commissioner Malone?
Yes, on the cyber discussion, the acronym MFA was used a couple times, and I'm not familiar with that.
Rick, do you want to speak on the MFA? I mean, I can speak as to, what is required in order for the cyber premiums to be more aggressive with MFA in place compared to currently not MFA in place. But Rick, you want to talk on that?
Yeah, Commissioner Malone, sorry for the acronym, MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. It's a form of security that I think probably most of us are familiar on when you get like a little security code when you try to go into a particular program and it says you need to put in this code, usually comes to your cell phone or another device. Currently, the county does not have that in place. This is a conversation I've been having with Adam. I think there is intent to bring that forward in the next biennium budget because there is a cost for doing that. However, based on this conversation here today, I do think it would be advisable to consider that not only from a security standpoint, but from just a risk exposure and being able to give ourselves perhaps more optimum coverage. But Darren could probably speak more in terms of what any additional requirements there are for what a appropriate MFA must look like.
Yeah, well, the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, every carrier that's out there right now is requiring this. And if it's not a requirement by the member or a requirement by an insured, a business of some type, whoever has the exposure, then either A, quotes are not provided, coverage is not provided at all by some carriers. Travelers, for instance, they won't provide cyber if MFA is not in place. Other carriers like the one that I presented here and the one that you currently have in force today, MFA is not a requirement in order to provide the coverage or get the coverage in place, but the pricing is not nearly as aggressive as if MFA were in place. I've got a lot of cities and other, nonprofits that don't currently have MFA in place, and either A, they don't have the coverage, cyber coverage in place at all, or B, they're probably paying 30 to 40% more in premium because they don't have MFA in place compared to those of similar size of business that do. It's just much more aggressive pricing because the security is there and the chances of losses occurring and breaches occurring are much more minimal.
Okay, thank you. And it's probably accurate to say that things are just going to get tighter and that the MFA makes sense going forward. I guess, is that accurate? That
yeah, that's accurate. More and more carriers are are jumping on the bandwagon of not providing any coverage or providing a reduced limit like CIS is providing $50,000 of coverage to every member, but at a cost this year compared to at no cost currently.
Okay, I appreciate the information.
Joe, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to let the commissioners know that Rick Krager and I talked briefly this morning on the topic of the MFA, and I do plan on having Adam come to a future goal setting to explain to the board exactly what it would take to implement that from a cost perspective as well as a process perspective. So I understand that this is a financial challenge for us as we look at our coverages. And so we do want to know what it's going to take. Just be aware that I also mentioned the word process. This will involve all of us doing things differently in order to gain access to our system. And many folks will consider that to be inconvenient. But I just underscore that because this is where the rubber meets the road, financially speaking, if we do not have that type of function within our IT system. So just be aware that at a future date, Adam will be coming to talk about this specifically. And he just returned from vacation today, hence the reason he's not here.
Thank you.
Can I add to that as well? Thanks. I can always also bring in a cyber specialist whenever that is possibly needed to discuss with the group and the reasons behind it and the requirements to work with the IT company on what they need to do or in conjunction with. So that can either come from an outside third party, or I can also bring in CIS's IT and cyber department specialists in one of our safety meetings, maybe middle of July, or even, out another quarter or whatever you want to do. But, definitely involve us as much as you want to involve the team of cyber specialists. So.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? And Rick, I think we can thank you. Perfect. You read my mind. All right. There is a motion on page 8 of the packet. If another commissioner feels like making a motion, Commissioner Ozero.
I just have a process question. Typically in the past, we've taken up these kinds of business items in the business meeting, and the work session has been primarily for prep and discussion. So I just wanted to make a note of that. But that said, I'd be happy to go ahead and conclude this piece of business. I move to accept the recommendations for property and liability coverages and for workman's comp coverage for fiscal year 2021-22 as set forth. Should that be for the next year, 2022-2023?
Yes.
For fiscal 2022-2023 as set forth by the agent of record.
And Commissioner, just if I might add, just to assume that you are comfortable with removing the $6,750,000 premium for that additional $50,000 in cyber liability. Is that a friendly amendment?
I would accept that amendment to my motion.
Yep. And I will second the amended motion.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So Erica, did you get the motion as it was amended? Don't tell me now we
might
can't
not be able to hear.
I could always repeat it, just for the record.
Yes, please.
I move to accept the recommendations for property and liability coverages and for workman's compensation coverage for fiscal year 2021-23 as set forth by the agent of record, exception of dropping the $6,750 for cyber coverage from CIS that would only have covered $50,000 of limit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Isn't it 2022 to 2023 for the coverage year? We're
That's
doing.
what I said.
You said 21, but
Well, I am the chair and I say motion made and seconded and approved, and I think we can move on. Erica says she's all good. All right, next agenda topic. Just being watchful of the time. We have a public hearing set for 11. It's not quite that time yet, so we will skip that and move to the consent calendar. Are there any motions for the consent calendar, either approve or remove anything?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. That will take us to new business, discussion and decision to extend the Small Business Development Center and Regional Accelerator and Innovation Network with Kate Portia, the Economic Development Director with the Corvallis-Benton County Economic Development Office. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioner. So nice to see you all. And I think this will be pretty brief and we can get you back on track for all the other business that you guys have on your agenda today. But beginning on page 92 of your packet, I did prepare a staff report outlining our office's recommendation for your outside funding for the next single fiscal year. And for those that are watching or may not know, our office helps to, one, do great economic development work through all of Benton County, but then we also coordinate the funding of outside contracts for the county. This last fiscal year, you all had agreed to fund 2 contracts, one for the Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, and one for RAIN, who does work with entrepreneurs in Benton County. And what we've done is had conversations with them about the services they're providing and have brought back to you a recommendation. So really quickly, I think it's fairly straightforward. What we recommend and our partners are in agreement with is that first, for Small Business Development Center, that we look at funding them in the total amount of $18,600, which is the pass-through amount they received last fiscal year, indexed increase by 3% using the index that Rick and I had agreed to, which is a part of our contract as well. The one thing I want to note on Small Business Development Center is that previously we had set up scholarships for their programs. We had those monies set aside. Those were only going out on a reimbursement basis, but those hadn't been utilized in the last 3 years. So it seemed like maybe just not quite the right fit for those funds. So we've pulled that back and are not suggesting that you do that. So this year's is a slightly less total dollar amount, but again, would help sustain the SBDC and the work that they do in Benton County for our small businesses. So $18,600 for them. And then our other recommendation is to continue on with the work for RAIN. And just like SBDC, we recommend increasing their funding by that same indexed rate of 3.02% for total funding of $26,700. So that really is what I was here to chat with you about. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Kate. Questions or comments for Kate? Commissioner Ogerow and then Commissioner Malone.
I just want to make a quick comment. At the grand opening for the new Chinook building for Lynn Benton Community College, I had the opportunity to speak to Marissa Schwartz at length, and she's very excited about having more Spanish language programming, but they are desperately in need of people to help to provide those services in a bilingual, bicultural way. So if any of you know people that are in accounting or have small business experience, legal background, that would like to work a half-time job helping young businesses, new businesses emerge from the Latinx community, please reach out to either Kate Porsche or Marissa Schwartz with the Small Business Development Center. She's actively looking for people.
All right, Commissioner Malone, I saw your hand.
Kate, I guess it was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we changed the funding arrangement from the county directly funding, I guess it was both RAIN and SDC, and now the money goes to your office and then distributed from there. Are things working as we thought, fairly smooth, and you and your office can probably do a better job of tracking both organizations' activities versus the county trying to do that. So did we make the right decision several years ago?
Well, thank you for asking, Commissioner Malone, and I'll talk a little, and I'll let your fearless county administrator chime in and give his opinion on if it's working for him. From my perspective, I think it's working really well, and I think what's helping the structure to work well is one. And again, for folks watching, I know you all know this, I don't see this as my money. You know, anytime we're making decisions about these fundings, that's your decision as a Board of Commissioners to make. I really see myself as the person that's helping you all to monitor these contracts, make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck, and that it's meeting the needs of businesses and folks in Benton County. And I'm happy to provide that service as part of what we do for you. So from my perspective, I do think it's a better structure, that I'm able to do a better job of keeping my finger on the pulse of what folks need and how the services are being provided. But with that, I'd be happy to let Joe chime in as well.
Commissioner Malone, in regards to your question, I'm very happy with our current arrangement.
Great. That's what I wanted to know.
All right, very good. Any other comments or questions? Do I hear a motion? Which I had, and
Give me just a moment here. And the motion does not have dollar amounts. Is that how we want to do this? So I will move to approve the economic development outside funding request as outlined in the action recommended section of the staff report.
Second.
And is that the motion you were looking for, Kate, or to our staff?
That is fine with me because I did outline the amounts in the staff report. I'm looking at Vance. I don't know if you can tell. If you all would prefer specific dollar amounts, it would be $18,600 for pass through to the Small Business Development Center and $26,700 as pass through to RAIN.
And it doesn't really matter what's in the motion as long as the three of you are comfortable with the motion. I know from past experience with Kate, her staff reports have been very thorough, and we don't have any problem discerning what she has put before you, but it's up to the three of you.
All right. And I believe I heard a second. Is that correct? All right. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your morning.
You too. All right. Next up, we have discussion and decision to approve a $300,000 grant to Unity Shelter from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. And with us, we have Rick Krager.
Great. Hello again, commissioners. Here today to request an approval of $300,000 discretionary ARPA grant to support 2 programs that have been developed and rapidly expanded to help address the issues of ongoing crisis that we're having around homelessness. And Suzanne Hoffman is here with me today, and I do believe Sean Collins from Unity Shelter is with us in the conference room. And so certainly if there are questions that come up, they're both here eager and able to answer any of the specific program questions. I'm going to just kind of real quickly go over some highlights of the proposal that was put in your packet. You have for you a summary of the project itself, along with a budget that explains sort of the overall project cost as well as the funding gap. But just to hit a few of the highlights, these are services that are currently and needed to be provided at both our Safe Place and 3rd Street Commons. These programs are non-congregate shelter to men and women experiencing homelessness in our community. And as we all know, this is certainly a huge issue within not only the nation, but in the state, but as well as in Benton County. So these are very much needed services to include trauma-informed case management, food supports, and referral to navigation support for connections and services. 3rd Street Commons, I think, as you all know, is operated through a partnership with Corvallis Housing First. It offers transitional housing at the site of the former Budget Inn, located in South Corvallis, is in approximately 25 rooms. Safe Place is a transitional housing program which utilizes micro shelters in both larger communities, Safe Camp, and distributed smaller sites up to 4 micro shelters and distributed smaller sites of up to 4 micro shelters hosted by area churches, provides non-congregate transitional housing to adult men, women, and couples. Clearly, Unity Shelter, they recognize, as we all do, that the physical infrastructure through Safe Place and 3rd Street Commons provides a solid foundation, but we also know you must have the wraparound services to be supported and to be able to move on and ensure long-term sustainability. So it's critical that we are able to provide case management, other supportive staff to assist them with connections to needed services, as well as developing business relationships. So clearly this is a model that has worked. We have seen that you can provide the housing, but you must have the wraparound services to be ultimately successful for these particular clients. Couple points to bring up. Unity Shelter did apply for an ARPA grant through our notice of funding opportunity held last February. However, there was some technical issues that prevented that from being actually submitted and part of that process. In total, as I had mentioned, $676,000 is the total 1-year budget for this. Since that time of learning that they had not gone as part of the process, they are putting $176,000 of their own resources into this in terms of helping to address this. They also have been working with Corvallis Housing First, and they have successfully applied for a $200,000 grant from Housing and Community Services, a Project Turnkey grant that will be fully committed to this particular project. And that's essentially how we get to the $300,000 that is being requested today. Couple other things just to mention. I have gone through this as it relates to the eligibility into ARPA. It fits perfectly. I will say this is one of the biggest areas that's highlighted within ARPA is addressing housing and homelessness. Everything fits very nicely. Again, they were not part of the process that we went through. However, again, looking at their proposal, it's a very good proposal. It certainly is something that's needed in the community. It also blends very well with the other projects that you all approved in ARPA, one for Corvallis Housing First, as well as several others that are addressing the homelessness. So again, it's a kind of a collective effort here as it relates to both the housing and the services to be able to work towards the issue of homelessness. So with that, again, my recommendation would be to approve this $300,000 grant. You should know that the dollars that this would come from would essentially be coming from the commitment that we have made for future resources. Approximately 2.4 million, you might remember, is what we have sort of targeted going forward each round for the next 2 years. So that money would essentially come from that. But again, as I mentioned, it would still be a grant that fall within what you have, the priorities that you have laid out within the process. It would still fit within that. So essentially, it wouldn't be anything separate, obviously, within the priorities that you had established from the NOFA process. With that, I would invite Suzanne, or if she has anything that I may have missed, or she would like to add to this. And certainly I know Sean would be here if there are any questions you have in relation to Unity Shelters. So Suzanne, anything you want to add?
Thank you, Rick. Just to say that I strongly support the request and recommend that if possible to go forth with granting that funding, that the Board of Commissioners do so. This is very much in line with the HOPE recommendations and the implementation work that we're engaged in with the City of Corvallis and with Community Services Consortium and with the partnership with our service providers. It's exactly the direction we wish to be going, to be able to combine those safe spaces for people to be with services that they critically need. This is a partnership that City and County and Community Services Consortium have certainly supported to date. Very worthwhile investment for our community. And I think I also wanted to mention, I believe that Andrea Myrie with Corvallis Housing First is also in the room with Sean. And I believe that they're here and available to also chime in and answer any of your questions that you may have.
Thank you. I have one question, but go ahead, Commissioner Ojero.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of this proposal. Indeed, I know that it's an essential component of our effort to ensure that folks are able to remain in housing and to progress into housing of their own from transitional housing. My question is about the long-term sustainability of case management, and I know that that's one of the elements of the HOPE recommendations. So what can you see from your vantage point now, either Suzanne or Andrea or Sean, what the longer term prospects are for perhaps having some of these services become Medicaid eligible so that there is a sustainable funding source?
Commissioner, I believe Andrea and Sean have come to the table, so I think they're probably best situated to be able to respond to that.
Perfect. And it looks like they found the unmute.
Okay. Good. Can you hear us now? Great. Well, thank you for the time this morning. And I think that that's a great question. Sustainability of funding is something that we're always focused on. I think that there is an ongoing funding stream that is kind of a recurring funding stream that we will be applying for from CSC. So there's money that gets kind of formula allocated to the community action agencies in Oregon and that supports shelter and other supportive services. We're also very actively working on more significant development work. The Board of Unity Shelter is committed to the programs that we're offering now and making sure that we can sustain them. So there's a very active work right now. We've brought in Lisa Hawash, who is a PSU professor, and part of her focus is on grants and development work. And she is leading our development team. And so there's a lot of work going on right now to identify foundation and other funding that is that's possible. One of the other things that we've done is take 3 of the rooms that are at 3rd Street Commons, and we have contracted those out as respite rooms for patients of Samaritan that are experiencing homelessness and need to be in a safe and secure space for recovery from surgery or preparation for surgery, recovery from other illnesses. And that provides some funding stream there. So I think that while I obviously, as the director of Unity Shelter, I spent a lot of time thinking about the sustainability of our operations and funding. I'm not losing a lot of sleep about it right now, and just because I think that the model that we've built is supported by agencies like Community Services Consortium. It's having a lot of results. We've seen from the Safe Place program, we've seen 19 people move into permanent supported housing in the last 18 months, or permanent housing, sometimes it's supported housing. And then another 8 people move into other transitional housing or supported programs like rehab. And we've seen another 8 people move into housing just from the 3rd Street Commons program, which is now just a year old. So these are programs that work and are recognized by our funders as being the right approach and in line with a lot of trends nationally.
Thank you. You answered my second question as well.
Oh, good.
Commissioner Malone?
I would just add that we had an opportunity for, there was increased funding for Project Turnkey sites that we took advantage of and decided to allocate that directly to Unity Shelter's day-to-day operations expenses at 3rd Street. And just to remind you, 3rd Street is, we have plans to develop that site into permanent supportive housing within the next 3 years. So that's the other thing, the cost requirements there will shift as we phase out non-congregate shelter there. And I would also add that, at the state level, you're very aware, I'm sure, that there's more funds being directed towards emergency shelters, all homeless services through Oregon Housing and Community Services. And that, so there's a shifting landscape for funding, and this will help bridge the gap until we can access some of those other funds.
Commissioner Malone, I think I saw your hand.
Yep. I appreciate the discussion of longer term funding. ARPA dollars are 1 or 2 times, but I toured the 3rd Street Commons earlier this spring and was really impressed with kind of professionalism of the operation. And I've talked to friends about that facility, and I think the general reaction was, "Oh, I didn't know that was going on," and which is, I think, in some ways, a good thing. That you're doing the job, and well enough that there aren't complaints from the neighbors or getting in the news kind of problem. So I applaud you for getting this up and running, and from the outside anyway, running smoothly. My other question was for Rick, and I'm on page 113 of the packet, just wondering about the mechanics of assuming we approve these dollars this year. Haven't we already spent half of the ARPA dollars that we were going to apply? And so I'm a little unclear on the mechanics of if we do this, how that affects this year and next year.
Yeah. So as it relates to the decisions around ARPA, the Board of Commissioners had focused on essentially 3 fiscal years of funding that would be made available through processes or through a process in which we'd allocate to community organizations. We did that first process, as you recall, and we awarded slightly less than $2.4 million and to 18 different awards, made 18 different awards. So what this would be doing, this is a $300,000 discretionary grant, but again, as I said, fits all the criterion that was established within that process. This would essentially be taking from those additional resources in the future. So take $2.4 million over the course next year and reduce that by $150,000 each year is what we'd have available for other community projects. So you're still in good shape in terms of being able to provide those resources. And of course, that will be, your decision on how you best want to prioritize those as we move into the next round. But so it takes a little bit, but it still is for a very worthy project that fits within the criteria that other projects were funded. Hope that makes sense, Commissioner Mullen.
Yep. Thank you.
And that, I feel like that's a good segue into my question, but I see that Johan has clicked on. Johan, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, thank you for the time. I was just looking over the proposal in the packet, and I really appreciate that Unity Shelter is naming the major impact this would have on communities of color and other disproportionately represented populations. Serving about 51% people of color throughout the 3 spaces is really significant considering how white our area is, and that really shows that they've been very intentional about connecting to resources for our community of color individuals, and that they are providing that service, because a lot of people of color often don't want to use services like this because they experience racism in places like that. And it's nice to hear that Unity Shelter and the work that they're doing is making it a welcome space for these populations. So I think this is a really great use of funds, especially because we made a very intentional use of equity lens as we were doing the ARPA allocation. So I appreciate Rick coming forward with this, and for you all providing this detail to us. Many groups forget to talk about that. So thank you for putting the work into that and for doing this amazing work for our communities. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Johan. So my question is sort of a process question for staff. So I know that we had a bit of it was a confusion on how the application was submitted. It was submitted, but we didn't get it. And so we did our initial approval of the ARPA projects. How did this come back to us? I apologize. Did the commissioners ask for this to be addressed again, or was this through Hope, or I'm just curious?
Yeah, no, great question. So you are correct that this was an application that was not included in the last process, and we discussed that, and I think all agreed that the process needed to be maintained, integrity of the process to be maintained. So that was sort of isolated by itself. Again, we've moved forward with that. We've made all the funding awards. You give me some discretion on that if I had any money left over, but unfortunately, everybody's taken it. So right now, at least at this point, there is no additional outside of that process. This particular request is completely separate from that and is coming to you as discretionary. This comes to you primarily from conversations that I had with Unity initially around this. Obviously wanted to understand the project, and Suzanne, of course, engaging with her around the need. And so as we put this together, we felt it would be appropriate to bring to you in the form of a discretionary grant request, again, fitting the high priority of you all as a commission, as well as a huge need within the community. We thought it would be appropriate. So it is completely separate. We wanted to make that separation from the NOFA process.
Sure. Joe?
Thank you, Commissioner. I also wanted to share that I've been involved in those conversations with Rick and Suzanne, and my concern was that we were using a new system this year to submit electronically these type of requests, and not exactly sure what transpired technologically speaking, but when I found out that there was a hiccup in that process, if you will, I thought it was appropriate, considering that housing and homelessness is one of the board's top 5 priorities, that we should bring this forward back to the board for consideration, separate and apart from the other process.
Thank you. And I want to share my support for this because I do wholeheartedly support it. I just want to make sure that, our optics remain good, that we're not sending the message out that, people can come and just ask for these dollars at any time, that it really is just a sort of a hiccup that we had with the new system. And that we're not just opening it as like a free for all, everybody come and ask for money outside of our process.
Yeah, Commissioner Wise, I might just add to help you feel a little bit better in relation to this, though, so that it isn't just anybody. I did look at, Sean and I talked initially, and I did look at his original application. Again, it was not part of the process, but I can assure all of you it was well done. And it was certainly in line with all the criteria that was outlined. And while certainly wasn't put as part of the scoring process, I can tell you it would have done well. So just to give you some understanding on where this fits, as opposed if somebody just said, hey, I want to apply. There was well intent here. And like Joe said, new system, things happen, and just unfortunately did not get to the right place.
Sure. Thank you for clarifying that. And again, I just want to say that for the record in general, not, I'm not displeased with anybody, individually, just wanted to get that on the record. And I agree with what Johan said and some of the other support that's been said for this application. I think these groups do great work that is highly needed in our community. I just wanted to highlight a couple things that this will be funding: case management, unit inspections, maintenance, resource navigation, weekly life skill meetings. Says in total, these resources will provide critical supports to individuals located in 25 rooms provided by 3rd Street Commons and 24 micro shelters in 4 sites for Safe Place. These programs provide non-congregate shelter to men and women experiencing homelessness in our community and provide supportive services to include trauma-informed case management, food supports, and referral and navigation support for connections to services. So very good work and much needed in our community. With that, I will open it up to any other questions or comments or a motion.
I'll make I move to approve a $300,000 grant to Unity Shelter under the same conditions and expectations outlined in the county's current ARPA grant agreements.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. And with that, it's 11 a.m. and time for our public hearing.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, so public hearing. We have, let's see, I will open the public hearing. In the matter of a public hearing to accept the report for the Small Business and Micro Enterprise Assistance Program of the Community Development Block Grant. And let's see, we have Rick with us again, and I also see Gary Stockoff. So now we can move into staff report.
Great. Thank you again, commissioners. Hopefully you're not too tired of me yet. One more to go here. And I am here today to, again, as part of our public hearing, to provide a report on the Small Business Micro Enterprise Emergency Grant Project, which is funded through Community Development Block Grant. So just real quickly, as some background for all of you, so back on November 30th of 2020, this board approved $150,000 CDBG grant to provide assistance to small business and micro enterprises impacted by the pandemic. Per that agreement, we were to enter into arrangement with Community Lending Works to provide grants to low and moderate income small businesses. And these were primarily for businesses that were needed help in terms of responding to the pandemic. The funds were required to be spent by 11/30 of 2021, so essentially 1 year. Another key piece is all assisted businesses were required to be located in non-entitlement areas of Benton County, so essentially all areas outside of Corvallis. In November of 2021, Business Oregon, they did announce that they would have an extension of time to spend those funds to April 1 of 2022. And in addition, due to lack of interest, they were also going to allow funds to be used for eligible businesses and microenterprises in entitlement areas. So that was one of the conditions that they had put forward. And then, of course, in February 2022, after we learned that there was limited use of non-entitlement areas or uses of funds in non-entitlement areas, you as the board approved a contract amendment that would enable us to have Community Lending Works to make grants to entitlement areas in the county. So that was done back in February. So as part of today, a public hearing requirement as of April 1st, 2022, Community Lending has successfully expended all $150,000 of these funds. In accordance to the CDBG rules, a lot of various requirements with Community Development Block Grant. One of our requirements is prior to closing this grant and receiving our funds, we have to have a public hearing. For you here, just for your reference, this is the public hearing notice that went out and was printed in the newspapers on June 14th of 2022 to make that announcement. Project timeline. So after the execution of the agreement, this is just to give you a little history. After the execution of the agreement in November 2020, the project was experienced some delays. So it really didn't get started till the summer of fall of 2021. And probably a lot of that, I wasn't here, but I know a lot of it probably due to pandemic, a lot of stops and starts in terms of getting things in place. So between August and December, Community Lending Works, they were able to offer 2 separate rounds of funding to the non-entitlement areas, but they only had 4 grants. So that's what we came to you in January 2022 after extension of fund use and broadened eligibility. They offered another promotion to test the interest, and then based on that interest, you all made the approval in February. So from a total project results, total of 15 businesses were funded after a full vetting process conducted by Community Lending Works. Of the total money, $135,910 was done in grants. The rest of it was administration for CLW to Community Lending Works to be able to actually do the program and grant administration. The grants were made to businesses in 4 different communities in Benton County: Corvallis, Philomath, Alsea, and Adair Village. Of the 15 businesses, 7 were sole proprietor micro enterprise businesses, and then the remaining 8 were small local businesses with full-time and part-time employees making less than $47,600 per year. So in total, when you put all of that together, there were 89 owners, employees that were positively impacted by these funds, and of those, 82 were low to moderately low income residents. Resources were used primarily to maintain employment for key employees and continue to day-to-day operations. Here's just a quick listing just for your reference. These are all the grants that were done through Community Lending Works. So you can see there's a wide assortment of variation of grants. And then lastly, just some kind of takeaways, if you will. These are some of the things that Community Lending Works has shared with me about things that just from their perspective, but as well as what they had heard from other recipients. There was a lot of gratitude in relation to small businesses. I think this was instrumental money that really helped keep people moving along, particularly as they overcome a lot of the economic damage created through the pandemic. They did find that there was really a lack of interest or knowledge of the grant program, which made it very difficult to promote. And I think that's, one of the things I understand is CDBG. We haven't always traditionally used CDBG at the county level, so this is a little bit new for everyone. But as we think about going forward and we think about these opportunities, I think promotion and interest, because I'll tell you, Community Development Block Grant is not always an easy grant in terms of administering. So I think it needs a lot of education. They did find that the federally required documentation was difficult and challenging for small businesses and required a lot of time. So that's something I think, that's a conversation we can continue to have with Business Oregon. Are there opportunities for us to make it more efficient? But again, there are a lot of rules and regulations to that. There was also a per employee sole provider allowance that was put into this. And while it was helpful, it really reduced on what could have been longer term benefits. So again, that was one of the limitations. And then the last thing that was that they were really sensing a burnout from the business community in relation to COVID and government funding opportunities. I think there's been a whole bunch of things in the last 2 to 3 years. And so there was a sense of burnout. But again, these are some of the general takeaways that was shared with me. I want to just personally thank, I did invite Community Lending Works here today. I don't think they were able to make it, but just wanted to say what it's been a real joy working with them. They've been a great partner, very responsive and very helpful through this, particularly for somebody that's coming in and didn't have a lot of the background. They've been just a good partner to work with. So kudos to them. With that, happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Rick. For me, that's helpful to know some of the feedback from the process. Clarifying questions for staff before we move into the public testimony portion. Hearing none, we will open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the room that would like to testify first? Hearing and seeing none. Is there anyone on the computer on the GoToMeeting that would like to testify? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And do I hear any questions, or are there any questions, comments, or do I hear a motion? Commissioner Malone and then Commissioner Ozro.
No. Okay. Appreciate hearing the feedback both from the recipients and Community Lending Works. I think this was a well-designed program. Might need a few tweaks, but I'm glad to get this information.
I think, as I recall, this is the first community development block grant that we went for in the context of the COVID pandemic. And it was a huge learning curve for us internally as an organization. And I think that in terms of Business Oregon's structuring of the opportunity, it sounds like it was a bit too constrained, and the proportion of paperwork relative to dollars received could have been a better one. So a lot of learning, but I am grateful for all that county staff have done to make this program a reality and to enable us to pursue further community development block grant funds for community members across the county. So thanks, Rick and team. I know it took a lot of people to make this happen.
Yes, thank you very much.
And with that, I'd be happy to make a motion. I move that we accept the report for the Small Business and Microenterprise Assistance Program as part of the closeout of the Community Development Block Grant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it. Now I'll go draw our money.
Thank you, Rick, and we appreciate you coming here like all meeting back and forth. Thank you. All right, and with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Or first of all, do we have any other business? Anything else for the good of the order? Commissioner Malone?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I met with some folks yesterday in LC, and it's an interesting group. It's not an official entity, but there's something in the neighborhood of 500 people that would consider themselves part of the LC community. And one takeaway, I think I found somebody that will act as a city representative for our, I guess, quarterly city managers meeting. And I don't know if there's any hoops that we have to go through to appoint somebody, but I think that would be a good addition to getting information, what's going on in LC and what kind of projects they may need help with, and how they can help be a more vibrant community.
All right, so it sounds like maybe you are asking for them to be invited to that meeting.
Yes, there was, I broached that idea, and Eddie, and I forget his last name, sounds like he would be willing to fill that role.
So Joe, how would Commissioner Malone go about doing that? Should he reach out to Maura?
Commissioner Wise, if the board is interested in inviting somebody from LC, you just need to let me know and provide the contact information, and I'll reach out to them, give them more context regarding those meetings, and get the invites on their calendar.
Okay, sounds good. Does that sound good to you, Commissioner Malone?
Great, yes.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, so I will adjourn this board meeting at 11:14 a.m. We will move into our county service district meetings. So I will open the Alpine County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:14 a.m. And first up, do we have any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move into the consent calendar. Do I hear a motion to approve or make a change?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the Alpine County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022 through 23 with Jennifer Ambule. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am here today to present the public hearing information for the service district's budgets. Prior to the final adoption of the budget, the governing body must conduct a public hearing, and the time has been advertised as required by law for this hearing. After receiving public comment, you may choose to adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 5th, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. You may choose to continue to pause this hearing and move it to a later date, but the budget must be adopted by midnight, June 30th, 2022. The district cannot legally expend any funds unless this budget is adopted. And the total appropriations for the 22-23 fiscal year for Alpine County Service District is $71,119.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions for staff? We'll open it up to public testimony. Is there any public testimony? Hearing and seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution adopting a budget and making appropriations for the Alpine County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-2023, which begins July 1, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we will adjourn this meeting at 11:17 a.m. And I will open the Alsea County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:17 a.m. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none. Do I hear a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I will open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the Alsea County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 with Jen Ambuhl.
You're going to hear me repeating a lot of the same things. So, good morning again. Prior to the adoption of the budget, the governing board must conduct a public hearing, and the time has been advertised as required by law. After receiving public comment, the body can adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 5th, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. The hearing may be continued to another date, but the governing body must adopt a budget by midnight, June 30th, 2022, or the district cannot legally expend any funds. The total appropriations for Alsea County Service District in fiscal year 22-23 is $253,953.
Any clarifying questions for staff? All right, any public testimony? Any members of the public wishing to testify? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution adopting the budget and making appropriations for the Alsea County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-23, which begins July 1, 2022.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 11:19 a.m. And I will open the Alsea Human Services County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:19 a.m. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none. Do I hear a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I will now open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the Alsea Human Services County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 with Jen Ambuhl.
Hello. Prior to the final adoption of the budget, the district governing body must conduct a public hearing, and this time has been advertised as required by law. After receiving public comment, the governing body can adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 5th, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. The hearing may be continued to another date, but the governing body must adopt a budget by midnight, June 30th, 2022, or the district cannot legally expend funds unless that budget is adopted. The total appropriations for Alsea Human Services County Service District is $52,839, and the tax rate needs to be set at 38 cents per 1,000 of assessed value.
Any questions for staff? All right, any public testimony? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve. Where are we? I move to approve the resolution adopting the budget and making appropriations and levying taxes at the rate of 38 cents per $100,000 of assessed value for the Alsea Human Services County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-23, which begins July 1, 2022.
So I saw some head shaking, and Joe, did you have a comment?
Commissioner, thank you. I believe Commissioner Malone referred to 100,000 as opposed to 1,000 in his motion.
Okay.
And do you accept the friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
And do I hear a
With
second?
that change, I will second it.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So now we're going to close this meeting at 11:22 a.m. And I will open the Cascade View County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:22 a.m. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I will open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the Cascade View County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 with Jenny Ambule.
Hello. Prior to the final adoption of the budget, the governing body must conduct a public hearing, and this time has been advertised as required by law. After receiving public comment, the governing body can adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 6th, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. You can choose to continue this hearing to another date, but must adopt a budget by midnight, June 30th, 2022, or the district cannot legally expend funds. The total appropriations for Cascade View County Service District is $187,827.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Is there any public testimony? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And do I hear a motion?
I would move to approve the resolution adopting a budget and making appropriations for the Cascade View County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-23, which begins July 1, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we will close this meeting at 11:25 a.m. I will open the Agricultural Extension Services County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:25 a.m. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I hear a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the Agricultural Extension Services County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 with Jen Ambule.
Prior to the final adoption of the budget, the district governing body must conduct a public hearing, and this time has been advertised as required by budget law. After receiving public comment, the body can adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 6, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. The hearing may be continued to another date, but the body must adopt a budget by midnight, June 30th, 2022, or the district cannot legally expend funds. The total appropriations for Agricultural Extension Services County Service District is $860,101, and the tax rate is set at 8 cents per 1,000 of assessed value.
Thank you. I just hit the wrong button there. All right. Any questions of staff? And is there any public testimony? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I will move to approve the resolution adopting a budget, making appropriations and levying taxes at 8 cents per thousand of assessed value for the Benton County Agricultural Extension Services County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-23, which begins July 1, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I will close this meeting at 11:27 a.m. And I will open the Hidden Valley Domestic Water Supply County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:27 a.m. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I hear a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the Hidden Valley Domestic Water Supply County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 with Jenny Ambule.
Prior to the final adoption of the budget, the district governing body must conduct a public hearing, and this time has been advertised as required by law. After receiving public comment, the governing body can adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 6, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. The public hearing may be continued to another date, but the governing body must adopt a budget by midnight, June 30th, 2022, or the district cannot legally expend funds. The total appropriation for Hidden Valley Domestic Water Supply County Service District is $40,295.
Any questions for staff? Is there any public testimony? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution adopting a budget and making appropriations for the Hidden Valley County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-23, which begins July 1, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And with that, I will close the meeting at 11:29 a.m. And I will open the South Third County Service District Governing Board meeting at 11:29 a.m. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I hear a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I will open the public hearing in the matter of adopting the South Third County Service District budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 with Jenny Ambule.
Prior to the adoption of the budget, the district governing body must conduct a public hearing, and this time has been advertised as required by law. After receiving public comment, the governing body can adopt the budget as approved by the Budget Committee on May 6, 2022, or modify the budget within the limitations of Oregon budget law. The public hearing may be continued to another date, but the body must adopt a budget by midnight, June 30th, 2022, or the district cannot legally expend funds. The total appropriations for South Third County Service District is $28,057.
Any questions for staff? All right, is there any public testimony? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
I've got a question. We've got a motion on page 130, talking about to adopt the proposed rate order. And then there's a second one on page 144. So I'm a little...
You would want the one on page 144. If I understand correctly, that rate order you actually adopted within the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
I will move to approve the resolution adopting a budget and making appropriations for the South Third County Service District for the fiscal year 2022-23, which begins July 1, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, so with that, we will close this meeting at 11:32 a.m. And that's the last sheet I have. Did we get them all? Yay.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Joe?
Commissioners, I just want to extend an apology to you, all of you, and Vance, as well as our staff who experienced the technical glitches this morning during our meeting. I am meeting with Adam as well as Maura this afternoon to try and get to the bottom of what's occurring.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate it. And we're all just trying our best. So one of these, someday, eventually, we'll have all of the equipment in the room and this will just be a memory of the past. So, all right. Well, we have been adjourned. So thank you, everybody. Have a
This
wonderful day.
conference is no longer being recorded.